Ladies and gentlemen, it is the WrestleMania post-show. I'm John Pollock along with Wai Ting. Wai, there's a party going on. It is WrestleMania Saturday, and the entire Ting community is celebrating WrestleMania.
You know, the entire neighborhood is celebrating Bianca Belair's victory, clearly. So excuse my microphone if you can pick up some of the music in the background. My neighbors are having a pretty loud party, but you know, I don't blame them. It was a big moment.
Yes, that is our stay-at-home order in execution here in Toronto.
Pretty much, yeah.
How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing very good, man. Listen, it was a 3.5 hour show, maybe 3 hours if you don't include the rain delay. I feel great.
Well, that was going to be my first question, because there have been many of these WrestleMania post-shows that we have done in the past where we are going on fumes by the end of the night, much less sitting down to record one of these. I think this will be the second year in a row that we talk about the length being a gigantic factor in people's enjoyment of these WrestleMania shows. And this was one that went longer than was expected because of the rain delay that we will certainly get into.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if next year, you know, with it staying one night and them fully opening up that Dallas stadium, if they will feel justified to do a half a show, or at least a show of this length. But I certainly hope they take lessons from these past couple of years, and at the very least, do not give us the marathon 7-8 hour shows. That does nobody any good. And at the most, I can probably bear another hour, you know, provided like the matchups are hot enough. But man, this is a good length. You want to leave your crowd feeling happy afterwards.
There's one date announced for next year and one date announced for 2023. But I mean, even Stephanie McMahon this week, I mean, she acknowledged these shows got way too long, and she was pretty clear she prefers the 2-night format, and even stated that anything can happen. So I think just the logistics, I don't think they'd want to run AT&T Stadium twice. I just think that's, they would want to avoid that. I think it's going to be a struggle to fill that place just for one night. But certainly you can look at this. The other side of it is, okay, do we sacrifice? Okay, we can't sell 80,000 tickets both nights, but we're providing 2 nights of content on Peacock. Who's the master we're serving here? Is it necessarily a live gate, or is it our streaming partner that looks at this as getting an additional night of content where we can have a big weekend, and this is another monumental event that we can position as 2-night WrestleMania? Like, tonight's success or this weekend's success, I think, will dictate that. So I don't look at anything as completely set in stone either, even if they're promoting it one way. I think that this has been, if anything that we've learned of the past year, it's that these can be fluid decisions.
Yeah, more can be good as long as you give me enough time to digest everything. And I think splitting it up into 2 nights is a good way of doing it. But we'll see next year. You know, everything can be different.
So what did you sense going into tonight's card in just in terms of the lineup today, and going into your show, like just isolating tonight, what was standing out for you?
You mean coming out of the show or going into the show?
Going in, like what kind of was like your interest level this afternoon?
I would say I was pretty interested, you know, primarily more so in, I think, the production of it all, you know, seeing the set, seeing, you know, what the entrances were going to look like, seeing how the crowd was going to be, you know, sitting, or how they were going to be seated, or at least arranged, I mean. So all of these things had more of my curiosity than probably any of the matches themselves. But once the matches got going, I would definitely say, you know what, like, coming out of this, like, we're just, you know, a few minutes removed. The feeling of that I think so many of us had watching that main event was incredibly special. And it was not a feeling that really dawned on me until the two of them got into the ring and had that face off. I personally blame my lack of interest, you know, due to the feud and the story that greatly took it down. But the moment they got back into the ring and squared off and had that pause, it all just came like flooding back in. Yes.
Shout out to the Post Wrestling Thunderdome that's joining us as well. So they're cheering. Yeah. So it started off, and Wai, you know, we were talking about this, and you were very skeptical. Could they do a whole 1 hour kickoff show without any matches? Well, Wai, Mother Nature said, you know what, Wai? They're going to do 60 minutes and then some of no matches. Because the kickoff began, and it was the panel of Kayla Braxton, Booker T, JBL, Jerry Lawler, and Peter Rosenberg. And it was largely just video packages, the panel talking. Like, there was very little to this kickoff show, other than just kind of setting the table that, hey, fans are back, and plugging all of the matches. Sonya Deville stopped by the panel, and that was about it. This was as skippable a kickoff show as you could present.
Very much so. I mean, I guess a place for people who haven't been watching the TV to catch the videos, the video packages, which are done really well.
This serves a purpose. I'm not saying there's no point to this. For many that are not following the TV, this is your catch up on what are the programs and what's going on. And that's what this was for the hour. And I don't blame them. There should not have been a kickoff show or match on this show.
It made me wonder if the decision to not have the match on the kickoff was done to make that first match feel special, or if it was just something that they didn't want to do anyway. In either case, it really worked out for them because they couldn't have had a match either way. But I thought, with the video packages were really strong, in particular the Sasha Bianca one, where there was absolutely no mention of the tag team title feud nor Reginald at all.
It was amazing.
Completely wiped that from memory. Oh, yeah. Like, it just tells you, how little they thought about it themselves. And we should also mention they slightly updated their signature off the top using some slightly new footage, and the word together was inserted. So now it reads, then, now, together, forever.
That's beautiful.
We're never getting out of this relationship, John. We're stuck.
No, we're stuck. Unless either of us grow too big of a head. But throughout the afternoon and into WrestleMania, I mean, lots of people were noting the the severe weather conditions that were beginning in Tampa. It was very overcast, and then the rain started coming down, and this was certainly a concern, and this ended up affecting the show more so than I thought it was going to be. And the first thing that I really focused on was the amount of sheer luck that they have had in so many years of running outdoor stadiums. I remember when we went in 2013 to MetLife Stadium, it started raining during the kickoff, I think during a Wade Barrett Miz match, but then it just ended, and it was a minor inconvenience if you were out in the crowd, but typically the ring is okay. This was their first catastrophe when it came to weather. And, going back to, I guess their first outdoor one would have been in 1993, but it's amazing that they have not had a larger issue than what they had tonight.
It's very true. The number of outdoor shows that they've had, that they haven't run into this earlier. And what a year for them to actually run into it. The first show in front of a crowd in a year. I guess the amount of times I saw the tweet about God getting his revenge for Backlash 2006 was
you found out the religious denomination of many fans. Yeah
we did. But it was almost poetic, wasn't it? You waited a whole year, what's another half hour before getting another thing? Thankfully it really was not that bad. Half an hour, and this half hour gave us, I think, some of the most compelling interviews we've had on WWE TV.
You got a fascinating 20 or so minutes because, first of all, the main show itself begins with Vince McMahon out with the entire roster on the stage, thanking the fans, welcoming them back, and welcome to WrestleMania, a very rare on-camera appearance by Vince McMahon. And then we went into the opening, which was largely just picking up from last year's bizarre open that I wasn't a big fan of last year and can't say I was this year, where they just tried to make fun of every dramatic, over-the-top reading for a video package. And that was our opening.
I didn't mind it so much, it just adding a slight bit of humor to your typical video package, which at this point they've done, 36, 37 of these. So, and I also like that they're kind of running with the same themes as last year. Like last year we had half a show. This year they're giving us a full version of it. Not changing too much, but, changing enough to make it feel fresh.
And then we went into 25 minutes of improv, and it was Michael Cole announcing to everybody that there is going to be a weather delay, and we're just going to kill time, essentially. And what happened was just a procession of talent that were interviewed backstage. This was like the WrestleManias of past years, where there would be Sean Mooney and Gene Okerlund back to back in the locker room interviewing all these guys. And it was really interesting to watch this because it became very evident those that were up for the task of doing an impromptu promo and others who I thought really struggled to do this. And you can look at it from a modern WWE perspective of, wow, this is like a total unforeseen circumstance, and this is crazy that they had to do this. And to me, like, these are professional wrestlers, and killing time with promos should be second nature. And it wasn't for some of these people. I think the guy that stood out the most was Kevin Owens, who cut an impassioned promo that was excellent.
Owens was waiting for this moment. He's like, dude, you're giving me live
take the microphone. Yeah.
You're giving me live airtime on WrestleMania for me to say whatever I want without a script. Give me the microphone and let me do my thing. Absolutely, yeah. Well, I love this.
I don't want to, like, Kevin Owens did a very impressive promo, but to me, like, this should be, everyone should be able to do this. Like, this is an aspect, but it's not one that is practiced in WWE, where you're not doing all those market specific promos every week, and you don't have that leeway of performers of past generations, except for several few. But I thought this was a very interesting spotlight on an aspect of the industry that was not second nature for all these people.
Totally agreed. So, I guess if we want to assess, who did well or who didn't, I mean, certainly MVP I thought was tremendous. And I think, a clear reason why he was being put there. I thought Drew sounded pretty good. Like, I think you can really trust him in these situations to, convey story while, like, feeling like a leader and speaking a whole lot about the fans. I thought he sounded very good. We mentioned Owens. Braun Strowman, maybe not as much. He is somebody who did come through the ranks, probably not cutting too many improvised promos, or at least, relying a lot more on scripted promos than, having the chance to improvise. So I can't really say he did all that well.
Shane McMahon and Sarah Schreiber were just terrible together and trying, like, it was, I guess they were the first ones, but it was extremely clunky. And then MVP and Lashley just thankfully just relieved Shane McMahon of his interview time. I saw Seth Rollins was trying to be way too witty, and it was just, he was all jumbled up.
I thought Seth was like, man, I thought, like, much of the problem, I thought he was going to do good, because, like, okay, well, he's not going to be scripted. This is a chance for Seth Rollins to cut, like, just a purely in-character heel promo, even if it was in character. I was wrong. Scripted or unscripted, that character is just as bad. So
he was like trying to make comedy of, like, hyphenating him and Kevin Patrick's names and stuff, and just
terrible.
Yeah, it was very bad.
I will say I thought the interviewers did better than they usually do, because they actually got to think about the questions that they were asking instead of having to, like, regurgitate some stupid, mindless, like, what do you like? What do you think of? Are you going to try to win tonight? Like, it was actually, there was actually a bit more thought put into everything, and I do wonder how much improvisation went on there.
Who would have shined in this environment would be Renee Young. Like, this would have been in her wheelhouse to just command these scenes with all of these performers. But I actually have not seen. I've got the WWE Network up here, and I don't think they've put up the show yet. But I'm really curious. Oh, it's up now. It seems like the whole thing is there. I was interested to see if they'll actually keep all of this.
There's no way they should edit it, because it is part of the story of this WrestleMania. It's just, and it was not embarrassing in the least. Like, what? I don't understand the point of trying to clean everything up. Yeah, if it was a finish that was, like, really, really awful, then okay, maybe. But this was not one of those things. This was, like, organic, and it made for a very compelling TV.
Yes to all those things. I will remind you of the company that promoted this show.
Yeah, I just think there would be quite a bit of outcry. I mean, I do, of course, understand them, like, taking out, like, Roddy Piper in blackface, things that would have embarrassed them. But I don't think this would be embarrassing.
Wai, they edit stuff all the time. Like, I mean, stuff that gets, they'll do like voiceovers on stuff. I mean, they will clean up tons of stuff. Like botches that they have cleaned up and stuff.
Well, I guess this was such a long series of events, and I don't consider it embarrassing enough that it would even be a botch. If anything, I think it's a great showcase of the talent that you have that are able to improvise the way that they do.
Not so much embarrassing, more so just, I mean, you could look at it like from like a critical standpoint. I guess it's just like the start of your show. It's like 25 minutes of just dead time. Anyway, so that was the start of the show. A very interesting start with this delay. And I mean, you look at the weather reports, it's like there are definitely chances of rain tomorrow. Like this potential of more rain tomorrow is a reality. So we will see what happens with the weather. BB Rexa performed America the Beautiful. And then after the break, it's Titus O'Neil and Hulk Hogan coming out as the co-host of WrestleMania. And I saw some fan videos. When Hogan grabbed the mic, there was a pretty vocal amount of fans that were loudly booing Hulk Hogan. It wasn't everybody, but it was pretty audible from some of the videos that I saw. And I thought this was a very lengthy opening with these two, and was kind of at this point after this rain delay, this was just more time filler. It felt like.
This was always going to be there, and
this was really their only segment. They were not all over the show. It was here, and then they were in the back for one segment, and that was about all they limited it to for at least the first night.
Which is not too different from, past WrestleManias. I think the hosting role typically just means the people to come out to give the opening address. And that's what, predominantly Titus did here. I thought Titus was great. He came out here full of energy, even while getting rained on. And, I thought played a great hype man for the show. The other guy, I don't think needed to be there at all. Offered nothing to the show other than, I suppose, his music, which is like an easy pop. But man, why? I still don't really understand the reason.
The other guy, man, Wai's not even gonna give his name. It was to me.
Hey, what did you think of the crowd noise? Did you hear any sweetening? What did you think?
I definitely saw people that were suggesting that there was audio being piped in. I guess I don't have the sensitivity to be able to decipher if there was piped in noise or not. I could certainly see that to make up for the lack of crowd that is in such a gigantic stadium. I see that as a reasonable possibility. I just can't say for sure if that was the case.
I'm definitely leaning towards them doing it a little, quite a bit for here and there, because I just simply don't think the type of sound that we heard is capable with a smaller crowd. Most of them masked. I don't.
A fair amount, yeah. There were a lot. You could see a lot of masks.
Were they mandatory?
They were said that you have to wear a mask inside. So.
Well, not everybody listened.
Well, it's again, what is the rule and what is enforced are sometimes different.
You think
things,
they had arrows? Think they had arrows?
I would hope so, because that could certainly, especially when that amount of people have to leave a stadium, some arrows would probably help directing people towards specific exits.
Yeah.
If the arrow's pointing that way, that's the direction you go in. It's a pretty universal symbol. So out came Bobby Lashley and Drew McIntyre to open the show for the WWE Championship. And I thought it took them a little while to get going because, we had talked about, man, the first match, this crowd's going to be electric. But I think the rain delay killed any of that. And it took them some time to kind of capture this audience and, kind of get their...
You figure it would be the opposite too, though, don't you think? Because they waited so long. For action?
If you were out there in the rain, I don't know, you might have a different reaction to things depending on if you were soaking wet or not. I mean, not everyone had those Samoa Joe, Michael Cole ponchos to wear. That was my visual of the night. That was something else when they cut to those two. It was like an SNL skit.
It was great. Said it all.
But once this got going, I thought these two were, this turned into a very good match. It was McIntyre selling for a long time, and then he built to his comeback. McIntyre was using the Kimura, which Michael Cole, we should note, was calling the show with Byron Saxton and Samoa Joe. Wrestling Inc. had reported earlier in the day that Tom Phillips was off of tonight's show due to COVID protocols. So it looks like Cole had to call this entire show, and I would guess probably has to do the same tomorrow.
Well, thankfully, it was a 3-hour show and not a 7-hour show.
That's true. I wonder, like, for an announcer to call a lengthy show and then come back, like, would you rather just do it all in once and then you crash at the end, or would you just pace yourself and you do, like, he was really on the air here for almost 4 hours.
Nothing unusual. I mean, the man's done longer shows than this. I mean, every Monday the man does 3 hours.
I guess so.
The crew does. Hey, what do you know about Adnan Burke?
Only what the report was. So again, it was Wrestling Inc. that had reported that Adnan Burke, who is from Toronto, former ESPN host, is set to become the new lead announcer on Raw. I've definitely asked around. I haven't been able to confirm it independently, but I mean that was Wrestling Inc.'s report that he is set to begin on Monday and would be the new voice of Raw. So that's Adnan Burke is like a significant hiring, like well known in the sports world, and as I mentioned, was with ESPN for 9 years.
Has he done any wrestling?
No. I don't know. Like, I'm not familiar enough to know what his what his like pro wrestling acumen is. But again, in WWE, I think it's much more about how you acclimate to that system, especially when you are a broadcaster that has had a career at a high level in the industry, coming into a world where it's going to be very different when you have Vince McMahon producing you. And this is like Raw is the ultimate pressure cooker, more so than an NXT, for instance. So it always, to me, I weigh who is going to succeed or fail based on what you come into, because it's going to be a drastically different experience. Number one, if you're not a fan at the beginning, and I don't know with Adnan Burke, but if you're not, you don't kind of have that kind of, stars in your eyes when you're coming in, and it's all of a sudden you're thrown into this deep end and it can become a very stressful job. And there's others that have thrived in it. So, I mean, we'll know what happens, but I'm always interested when it's someone that's come from a very successful background into that world and how they acclimate.
All the pieces here don't give me that much optimism, and it's nothing about like the talent of Adnan Burke, who I don't know really all that well, but I can assume is incredibly talented in his own right. But this is a completely different game, and man, I do think, I wait to see it. I keep an open mind, but man, we've seen so many instances of this, of people outside coming in to do this job and just not lasting all that long. So, man, we'll see how it turns out.
So as the match progressed, Drew McIntyre was working for the Kimura, and they were linking that back to the match with Brock Lesnar. He set up for the Claymore, but ran into a chokeslam, and the audience starts chanting, "This is awesome." So either this was going into the WWE Spotify list, or the crowd resurrecting my favorite chant. And things are really clicking at this point. Lashley slid to the floor, avoiding a Claymore, and took a Tope Con Hero. And then McIntyre escapes a Hurt Lock, running Lashley into the buckle. And then McIntyre goes for another Claymore and gets stopped because MVP yells something from the floor. And this was just kind of clunky. I don't know if MVP should have been like grabbing at McIntyre or actually getting on the apron, because I don't know what would have held you up so much of what he yelled at him. So it was a little awkward.
It didn't really help that, so it was mid-Claymore, so he stopped, and then Lashley also stopped. Mm-hmm. When I think Lashley was maybe supposed to, I don't exactly know, but this was meant to be a pretty pivotal spot in the whole
It led
match.
to the Hurt Lock. Like, this was the key moment of the match. Lashley gets the Hurt Lock on. Drew McIntyre does the Bret Hart Piper spot, Bret Hart Austin, where he kicks off of the turnbuckle to flip over, but Lashley keeps the hold applied, and as he has him down on the mat, the referee calls it off, and Michael Cole made it crystal clear. Drew McIntyre did not give up. He went out cold. 18 minutes and 10 seconds, and a lot of people were surprised by this finish. I was not one of them. We talked about all the reasons. It's like Drew McIntyre winning. There are no heels on Raw other than rematches with Lashley, because Sheamus is done. Not to say you couldn't have done it, but I'm I was fine with this. I think this feud continues. I think this was certainly not the finality of this program because it's not like Lashley has a slew of baby faces either in the waiting. So I think you can get more out of this. My immediate thought was something like a I Quit match or something where you know he has to verbally submit Drew McIntyre that maybe they can revisit or something. But I thought overall good match, but definitely like it was definitely an awkward spot to set up the Hurt Lock. It didn't come off that smooth to me.
I thought it was a good, standard WWE main event match. And, that's not to say it was bad, but I can say it probably wasn't all that memorable for me. There's really nothing about this match that I think stands out. And I don't really think I'll remember it, come next year. But I think for an opener, it was perfectly acceptable. Had a grand feeling. You had Drew come out for that big first entrance. You had a significant. To me, the finish was a surprise because I think Drew. So many of us just think that okay, he didn't get his WrestleMania moment in front of a crowd last year. He's going to get it this year. But instead, they went with Bobby Lashley, who they've done a tremendous job with. So for me, this was a pleasant surprise because Lashley, I really want to see, have an extended run with this thing rather than having it just simply extinguished with a big moment for Drew like this. And I think Drew is probably going to be way better doing the chase anyway. So it was a finish I didn't expect because like coming into the WrestleMania, with before the Rumble, it really felt like Drew was still like the lead character, the lead babyface, and instead he loses the match, which was not something that we all saw coming. But I think the right move.
I think so too. I think it's more interesting this way. I mean, the promo on Raw certainly led you to believe that Drew has to win this match, but I think you can. I like the way that the finish went with him going out cold. I mean, you really preserved the Hurt Lock, and I think there's a lot of mileage with Bobby Lashley as champion beyond just whatever it's been 6 weeks since he won the title. In the back, Titus O'Neil is hanging out with the NWO, and Bayley appears, and she's just playing her over-the-top character. She wants to too sweet them, and they're pretty much all just blowing her off, except for Sean Waltman, who does admit he's a fan, and too sweets her.
It was nice of Waltman. Waltman seemed like the only decent dude here, like amongst the NWO, to actually give respect to this very talented person. I don't know when they planned all this stuff with Bayley, but it really felt like they were just trying to cram her into the show without much, thought between this and the Hall of Fame induction later.
Yeah, I could see her like potentially having a similar role tomorrow where she's just kind of thrown in as kind of this roving personality that interacts with everybody. Because that's kind of what she was tonight. The women's tag team turmoil match. Let's get into it. The winning team advances to challenge Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler on Sunday. It started with Naomi and Lana against Carmella and Billie Kay. If you want to see a really great video, Lana posted arriving at the stadium and all of the fans chanting Lana Day at her. And it was like a really cool moment that you could see legitimately moved her.
It was really lovely. Some really great, genuine emotion. And seeing that video really kind of made me pay attention to her entrance here with Naomi, which looked awesome. I love Naomi's entrance and their outfits look great. And you can, feel like this was incredibly significant for her, as I'm sure it was for every performer on this show.
Well, we've talked a lot about, the safety precautions and following protocols. I do want to make mention here that when Lana went for this leaping kick, there was so much of a social distancing between her and her target. This was like 6 feet minimum. And the announcers had to acknowledge this. It was just complete a different area code of where her foot was and the target.
Well, good to see her practice safety measures.
Billie Kay did a sunset flip roll up on Naomi, and then Carmella was behind her and propped her up with her feet, holding her back up, and pinned Naomi in 2 minutes and 21 seconds. This was not good.
Really, it was all about the entrance, I think, for at least, Lana and Naomi coming out here. So they at least got that, but the match itself, it was not very pretty. And man, it was a really, man. So like they have Billie Kay doing a sunset flip and Carmella pushing off the ropes to add leverage. I just think it's such a stupid, awkward looking spot that I certainly would question doing on any sort of TV show, much less a WrestleMania where you're supposed to be really bringing out your best material. I don't think this deserved the stage.
Yeah, this was, literally we're recapping like 2-minute matches here. It was Carmella and Billie Kay against Ruby Riott and Liv Morgan next. Kay started the match with Morgan, and then Kay knocked Riott off the apron. They went for the same double team roll-up spot with Carmella using her feet, but this time the referee caught them. Morgan hit a code breaker, Riott with the senton, pinning Billie Kay in 2 minutes and 4 seconds, and then Carmella super kicked Liv Morgan before leaving.
Also not that great.
No, none of these were very good at the beginning. Ruby Riott and Liv Morgan against Dana Brooke and Mandy Rose. Brooke and Rose had matching pink outfits and wore sunglasses to the ring.
Poor Mandy had a slip on this giant ramp, which was not surprising due to the rain, of course.
Maybe it was a tribute to Ultimo Dragon.
Yeah, it didn't rain for that one.
No. Brooke hits a blockbuster onto Ruby, and Morgan broke it up. We had Rose then scale to the top. She nearly slipped again here. And then suplexed Liv off, and Brooke landed a swanton. Brooke went for the cover, but Morgan reversed it into an inside cradle. And Greg Hamilton announced that the Riott Squad had been eliminated. And then we got the record scratch moment. I am corrected. The Riott Squad are the winners. Perfect summation of this tag team turmoil match so far.
It's rare we have a correction with the words correction beginning at the end of it. It was pretty funny. Oh God. Like these announcers, they're supposed to be like so perfect that you're not supposed to think about them. They're supposed to be like robots. And so for Greg Hamilton to mess up like this on a WrestleMania, I'm sure he's
listen, when it came to the broadcast team, I mean, you had the screw up of all screw ups at like the most important moment of the night tonight that we'll get to. And then Tamina and Natalya were the last team out. By process of elimination, I thought this one was like the best of the bunch, but that is,
this should have been the match. Like they could have made a full match.
I agreed. Like I get the idea of getting all these women on, but it was like, God, this was not for the betterment of this. Like it was just these like poor throwaway matches. And then these four, they got under 4 minutes here. But nothing wrong with it. Natalya teased the sharpshooter at the beginning, and that was countered with a small package. The Riott Squad double teamed Tamina, and then Tamina connected with a super kick. They hit the heart attack, and Natalya teased the sharpshooter again, but instead tagged Tamina so she could hit the superfly splash, and Tamina was the one that got the cover. 344, all short matches. Not good as a whole. That's all I can say.
If this was on a Raw or SmackDown, I'd be like, yeah, okay, whatever. It's just like something to set up, your challengers. But because it's WrestleMania, to me, like, this should still be the showcase of your best shit. And I'm talking about the level of women's wrestling, not just in general in the world right now, but in their own company, in the WWE. It is far higher than what this tag team gauntlet match represented. And for that reason, I mean, look at the fucking main event, and then look at something like this. This did not belong on the show. It belonged on SmackDown or Raw, and it would have been fine. But anyway, the Riott Squad had some cool double team moves. Natalya and Tamina looked good, and I think tomorrow's match has a chance of being, decent.
Yeah, it could be decent. So we'll see. But this was, turmoil. Seth Rollins and Cesaro followed that. Cesaro unloaded with uppercuts in the corner and landed a discus lariat, dropping Rollins. The neutralizer was attempted early, and then Rollins countered it with a back body drop. Early on, Cesaro went for the swing, but Rollins survived that. And then Rollins hit this really cool corkscrew splash as he rotated in midair, coming down on Cesaro. And they had like, they really gelled very well together, just very smooth with a lot of their ideas. All of it worked. Cesaro swung Rollins with a tilt-a-whirl, ending with the neutralizer for a big near fall. and then yanks Rollins off the rope to attempt another, but it's blocked, and Rollins hits a pedigree for a 2 count. Rollins then struck Cesaro in the back of the neck, like Karrion Kross's spot, and then went for the stomp, but Cesaro thrust him up in the air, a la Randy Orton, but instead of an RKO, came down and was met with an uppercut. And then Cesaro did his airplane spin, the UFO, because it was the no-arm version of the airplane spin. And as he calls for the Cesaro swing, the crowd counts along. No, he did not hit 100. He hit 23, one more than the 22 he hit the previous time that they did the counter for, and then hit the neutralizer. 11 minutes, 27 seconds. I think they could have gone even longer, and I would have had no problem with that, but I enjoyed this. I thought it was a really entertaining match that both had. I thought both were really strong in this.
Yeah, I thought it was a very good match. I hesitate to call it a great match. You know, I really do feel like these two are capable of even better than what we got
at
here.
18, I think we would have been gushing about this. I think 18, but I thought it was really good. It was, but I wish they had. I was hoping this one was going to get like 20 on this show.
Yeah, well, to me, like, I think a lot of this match is really more so done for more so the sports entertainment of it all, and the purpose of this was to really craft a great moment for Cesaro, which I thought they were absolutely successful in. You know, I at the end here, you saw a rare occasion of Cesaro actually looking emotional. He put his head in his hands, like this was a big significant moment for him. I don't think we've ever had that for Cesaro throughout his entire tenure in the WWE. He's either just been a guy or a guy in a tag team, or like a guy standing next to somebody else, or not on the show at all. So to see this man for the first time on this stage be the center of attention, be the center of conversation, have his music played at the end of a big match, I was really happy for him. And at the end of it all, like, you know, you got to credit Seth Rollins for being the person who was giving enough to do the match with him, and to
he was really good in the match. Like both of them were, but like Seth really did his part here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought, you know, throughout the build, they did a good job of setting up the swing as the centerpiece of it all, got the crowd with it, and it all worked here to give the crowd something to focus on and to make Cesaro look like a big, you know, this physical specimen that they can push now. And I just hope, like, they have follow-up plans for the guy, because, you know, the promo thing is still going to be a disadvantage, and I just hope they continue to focus on what he does incredibly, and that's like these sort of superhuman feats.
And then Vince McMahon walked down the stage and he presented him with the brass ring to put on his finger. And then he said, "Welcome, 40-year-old Cesaro. I finally get you now. You're Swiss. You're Swiss." Cesaro was also very emotional after a win, and I thought Corey Graves did a great job kind of signifying why this was an important win and just how popular this guy is in the locker room, and that everyone is really celebrating this win for Cesaro. It meant, I thought that, like, little things like that, to me, they put a win over as something more than just a win. It's something significant for the guy's career progression. Whether we see Cesaro moved any forward than this, I mean, again, this is a guy who's been on the main roster for almost 9 years, and again, he's at 40. Was this just an idea, or is this something that will be sustained?
Because it's a WrestleMania, because it's like, you know, they could have given a spot like this to really anybody, and they chose to specifically give it to Cesaro. I have to think they have follow-up plans for him. So, you know, let's hope for the best.
Kayla Braxton interviewed Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode. I don't know why we needed this. It had no connection to anything. They made their prediction for the Raw Tag Team Championship, where Roode brought up how long he's known AJ Styles and not to bet against him. And they're off to do a photo shoot with the Hall of Famers.
Just an acknowledgement that these titles exist, I suppose, because they're not getting a match on either night.
No. Big E came out on the stage to introduce Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods. I would have liked this if we didn't know Big E was going to be here tonight, but I mean, in the whole impromptu, they just had the New Day, all three of them together for an impromptu interview. But nonetheless, I mean, worth using Big E here for this WrestleMania entrance for Kingston and Woods. And their opponents, AJ Styles and my new favorite wrestler.
Fuck, really?
Omos. He came out in his black leather jacket, his chain, and his pants. Dude, this guy was ready to just be, he was dressed like he was off to go bounce at the local club.
Or bounce at Raw Underground.
Either one, you're right. So the story of this was it was very complicated because they put Omos in the corner and the whole match was built around Omos getting the tag. So it was like the New Day almost had to play the heels, cutting off the ring, keeping AJ away from the guy everyone wants to see, Omos. And the New Day is preventing you from being able to get what you want. So it's kind of a backwards layout here, but Kingston and Woods, they beat down on AJ. Styles, like after a long time, finally makes it and tags in Omos, and the crowd's buzzing. And Xavier Woods, this was the equivalent of him like jumping at a brick wall and bouncing off of it. Kingston came off the top and he's just swung to the floor. Omos hits a pair of backbreakers onto them. And then Styles comes off the shoulders of Omos with a phenomenal forearm. And Omos builds up to the big spot, the tree slam on Kofi. And AJ demands 1 foot. And he steps on top of Kofi. And 1, 2, 3, Omos Mania. 9 minutes and 47 seconds. Your new Raw Tag Team Champions.
Tell me how you really feel about this.
Listen, for what this was, I thought that this was the best you were going to get out of this. Don't screw up any of Omos' spots and have AJ work 90% of the match. This is all you could have hoped for.
You know, to me, this was like, in some ways, I thought it was really refreshing because it was such an old school build for a guy, you know.
Probably too old school, because I don't think you can go far with this. It was fun for match number 1, but you don't have a tag division to just have these guys run through people, and eventually there's going to be the inclination to separate these two. And Omos, like, you can't do this in 2021 in a singles capacity in any kind of meaningful role.
So, you know, I thought they were tremendously successful in building up to the moment of Omos tagging in. And, you know, we haven't come to a conclusion about whether or not, like, how much, canned audio they were using. But I do genuinely feel by the time, they had Omos tag in, it felt like a big moment. You know, they're really making us wait for it. And then the moment we got it, it felt like a big deal. But, man, like, they got through this match. They got through that moment of anticipation. But it's afterwards that I kind of have some concern with, because wrestling fans, I think by and large at this point, are a bit more difficult to please than just, you know, using these types of bells and whistles and camera tricks that you used to use for Andre the Giant. Like a big guy doing a tree slam is not really going to cut it. Not in a world with, like, you know, Brock Lesnar's and like Walter and, like, you know, even like
they tried this with, like, if you go back, like, look at the booking of Great Khali, not the comedy version, but when he came in and they put him over strong against The Undertaker. And yeah, that first night, that Judgment Day match, when they did the singles match, everyone was like, man, they booked this monster. But it was like, listen, you can't go far with this. And that was 15 years ago. So I certainly see the limitations of this. I'll say for just this match alone, I think this is literally the best you could have hoped for to get out of him. Like, he didn't screw anything up, and he did more than just like a chop, for instance, or one spot. Like, he was, you know, he didn't drop anyone on their head. Like, that to me was a win in this match.
You know, if our bar is the Great Khali, I think Omos will surpass it. But certainly not the best in-ring debut we had on this show. No.
But there you go, your new Raw Tag Team Champions. And as the WWE stats noted, that there are 2 men that have debuted at WrestleMania and won Tag Team Championships. Omos and Nicholas.
Can you classify Nicholas as a man?
He's a male.
Okay, 2 males.
The American
males.
Two
humans who have
2 humans, yes.
Right.
And then they did have a good, like, shot at the end where Styles is on the shoulders of Omos holding up his tag title. So we'll see what they do. This is your tag division. This was the entire tag division on display.
It is, yeah. And, you know, like, if you're going to do a match like this with a cartoonish character like Omos, I think the New Day were the perfect baby faces to sell for him.
Well, speaking of cartoonish baby faces, Braun Strowman versus Shane McMahon was next.
We should also mention they announced WWE 2K22.
That's right. Yeah, they put out the trailer that's all focused around Rey Mysterio, front and center, which
is
I don't
shocking.
know.
Like, why would you do that?
You would think, like, for this to debut this trailer, that alone, I would have found some role for Rey on this show.
Yeah, you would think so. But I mean, who knows what sort of communication? Maybe Rey will end up getting a push out of it because he's being pushed for the video game. But of course, like for people who don't remember, like 2K20 was the big catastrophe that really kind of forced that franchise to take a whole year off to retool it. So they
picked the right year.
They certainly did. They though, because like the past year would have been perfect to launch a video game. Everybody staying at home. But anyway, this is, I think this is going to have to be a big return to form for this company. So I think there's going to be a lot of attention on it.
I thought this game could have used maybe one other Mysterio featured prominently.
He'll be in there, no doubt. Yeah.
So we had the steel cage match. Jerry Lawler's brought out as the guest commentator. I assume just to tell all the his one-liners for stupid jokes. So he's with Cole Saxton and Samoa Joe. And before Strowman can enter the ring, Elias and Jackson Riker jump him and attack his leg with steel chair shots. And then the bell rings and Shane's got the chair, attacking Braun. And then Shane McMahon, in front of our very eyes, morphs into Edson Barbosa with those leg kicks. And then, I don't know, he morphed into, like, I don't know what with the punches, because those made its way here. And Strowman...
Jackie Chan.
Yeah. McMahon grabs this metal plate off of the cage. He was using that as a weapon. And Strowman's basically just selling his legs. He goes for a power slam, but the leg gives out. McMahon hits the DDT and a coast-to-coast drop kick. And then Elias and Riker are climbing one side of the cage as Shane's trying to climb over. Strowman crashes into the cage and brings Shane back down. And they fight on top of the cage. There are these buckets that are positioned on each corner of the cage, and inside is a toolbox, of course. And Shane grabs this toolbox. I swear to God, the only reason I can imagine this was for Lawler's line to say that he used the toolbox on this tool.
I think that was a Jerry Lawler improvised, only from the true wit of Jerry Lawler, I think, would you get something.
He had his WrestleMania zingers out tonight because on the panel, as the rain was starting, he said, "I'm not a fan of rain. I'm a fan of hail. All hail the king." Dude, but he says it in like, he delivers these, and it's not with a smirk. It's like, he says it, and then it's like he sits back, and it's like, react.
It's way funny.
Pretty good, huh?
It was really funny just hearing you repeat it, and I guarantee you, like, you probably did. It was so much funnier than Lawler.
Oh, well, then we got into the real comedy of this match. So Braun survives the tool attack, and they go back onto the top of the cage, and I swear, Strowman yells, "Who's stupid now?" And he launches Shane off the cage and down onto the canvas, a very controlled fall by Shane. And then Strowman yells, "This is for every person that has ever been called stupid." And the crowd said, "Yeah, we're stupid." Fuck. And he hit the power slam, and he pinned Shane, and stupidity prevailed. 11 minutes and 28 seconds. I'll say this, I thought they did enough stunts and stupid stuff that it was 11 minutes. I'll never think of this match again in my life. But I didn't think this, like, it didn't go to me long enough to wear out its welcome. Even late in the show, it was just there for me. It's like, I don't have anything really strong, positive or negative to say about it.
I think I will think about this match again. Come December when we do our worst of the year.
Ooh.
And not for the match itself, because the match was exactly what I expected. It was like
the dialogue.
I did not. No, not the.
This
dialogue.
Is for every person that has ever been called stupid.
The match was like just like the what is it? Shane McMahon, Taker, Hell in a Cell, where when you confine Shane in a space where he can't do his dives and crazy stupid spots, it's just a bad match, which is what we got here with a bad wrestler and a guy who, you know, like in Braun Strowman, who wasn't strong enough to be able to carry him through it. It was all building up to the stunt, which, you know, I thought for a second we were actually going to get Braun jumping off of it, you know, like with that being the swerve.
Yeah, that would have been an awful idea. He would have wrecked his knees.
But instead it was 51-year-old Shane McMahon taking a hip toss off the top, which, yeah, is impressive. But I mean, having seen the guy just fall off from greater heights, maybe, you know, a bit of a diminishing return. I think for me, though, when I think about this as being a candidate for the worst, I'm thinking about the feud overall, where Shane McMahon coming into this whole thing with incredible bravado, like against the guy who everybody usually sells for in Braun Strowman as this monster. You know, like throughout the entire weeks, they were teasing us that Shane McMahon had something up his sleeve for this false confidence, something that we thought we would see revealed tonight, in whether in the form of somebody coming in to help Shane or some other surprise.
He had the two bumbling fools with him.
That was the source of his confidence this whole time, Elias and Jackson Riker with the chair. I can't imagine that was the intended story. And by the time this was over, I don't know what the intended story was. Was it just Shane McMahon wanting to be a bully to a giant, thinking somehow he was able to get away with this? What was the intent here?
Payoff, Mania. Let's get on the card. The feud was bad. I mean, it ended with, Braun has proven he wasn't stupid. He outsmarted Shane. By Shane allowing him to choose any stipulation he wanted, and Braun chose the stipulation, Shane did not sell the fear at all, and then he ended up getting tossed off the cage.
He actually didn't outsmart him at all. He used sheer brute force to peel that fence off that cage, and then threw the man off himself. So I think it would have at least been poetic if like Braun came up with some brilliant, smart strategy that like actually allowed him to win. I don't think this was that. So I don't see the thread here in this story.
Yeah, like maybe Shane could have had Elias and Riker with him, and then Braun informs them it's my constructed cage and it's got like a roof on it, or it's an electrified fence.
That would be, I guess, smart, yeah.
So that was it. I did love the part where Elias and Riker were climbing the cage and Cole's yelling, "This is all legal. This is legal." I'm like, yeah, this is the exact concept they had in mind when they resurrected or came up with the cage match idea. Was, yeah, anyone can climb in. Everyone's welcome. So there you go. Braun wins. Michael Cole then gets set to throw to a Hall of Fame video package when Bayley crashes the announcer's desk, calling Cole an idiot. So maybe she's going to get slimed. And she threw to the video package herself, and we brought out the Hall of Fame class for 2020, and I guess we'll get 2021 tomorrow night. Everyone was there except for Jushin Thunder Liger, and everyone waved, and Hulk Hogan brought his replica title.
I don't think William Shatner was there either. Or was it?
Oh, that's right. Shatner. I think Shatner was 2020. I think you're right. Yeah, Shatner wasn't there as well. Which is too bad. They could have like done like a hologram or like beamed him in and had him address the crowd that way.
Yes.
We got a promo for WrestleMania 38 featuring Steve Austin. I would have loved, like, with this, not that, like, of course, use Austin if he's available, but like, could you have imagined like WrestleMania 14 with Mike Tyson, and we got Bruno Sammartino for the ad to plug WrestleMania in Boston?
Oh man. Is that how much time like the equivalent would be?
I mean, Bruno wrestled Bruno had his last match in 87. And WrestleMania, it would be way longer than that. I mean, his heyday was certainly much, like, more so, this, like, he lost the title, for the last time to Graham in 77.
Dude, Hulk Hogan is hosting this WrestleMania, so well, that tells you all you need to know. It's a different qualification, because, like, they are, you know, like, they were stars at a time when wrestling was at a peak that we haven't, you know, reached since, and certainly not at Bruno's time.
Listen, it's one, like, look at these two nights as well. Like, this was not a year where they loaded up on older talent. Like, really, it was down to, like, you had your two celebrities, but Shane McMahon was pretty much the only one that would qualify as, you know, like,
Time.
Yeah, like they, for better or for worse. I mean, they didn't have to sell the amount of tickets that they had in a normal year. Next year, if you want to sell 80,000 tickets in Texas, you know, these cards aren't going to sell 80,000 tickets, in my opinion.
You'll need Austin presence from him. I mean, you could probably assume something with Taker.
Possibly, yeah. Booker T comes out. He's the guest commentator for the next match. And then we get the procession of bunnies on the way to the ring, several of which lost ears. I guess a Cactus Jack tribute.
I saw your tweet. Very good. Very
yeah, that was for a select audience. And then The Miz and John Morrison, after the procession of bunnies, came out with like an intentionally poorly lip-synced version of Hey Hey Hop Hop.
You think it was intentional? Yeah, probably.
I mean, Michael Cole called out how brutal it is, so I think it was done on purpose to be bad. And then Damian Priest comes out with his Damian Priest entrance, and Bad Bunny enters on this gigantic Mack truck from outdoors that comes into the stadium with a huge fireworks display. They went all out here for Bad Bunny.
You know, he is one of the attractions of this show, so absolutely he should have had a big entrance.
I mean, he was here for this reason, and he felt like a major star the way they presented him. It is I watched the show on my own. It's very rare that I laugh out loud, but Bad Bunny landed this punch on The Miz, and John
Hold on
Morrison,
a second, John. I thought you were going to mention the rest of Bad Bunny's entrance.
Oh, yes.
Featuring the biggest high-budget effect of them all.
That's right. I mean, they really want to tap into the, you know, that younger demographic, and they got it with myself and Wai Ting making cameo appearances.
We made it onto this WrestleMania, yes, in the form of at least our heads did. So we thank Bill, our good friend down there, for getting our faces on this show.
Yeah, this is the anecdotal evidence you get of a celebrity crossover. When I was getting like a text from someone I went to high school with saying, "I'm seeing your face on WrestleMania."
It's quite the unique text, quite the unique way to reconnect with the high school friend.
So it's The Miz and Morrison against Damian Priest and Bad Bunny. So Bad Bunny lands the punch on Miz, and John Morrison gives these words of encouragement to The Miz, saying, "Rabbits are lucky." And I thought it was a very good line from Morrison.
Morrison was really funny.
I thought Morrison was really funny, yeah.
Throughout this entire feud, he's been really funny, just kind of like shouting things as a sidekick, doing all the Spanish stuff. I wish I understood Spanish so I could know at least what John Morrison's ad-libs would be. But throughout the match, like, he's saying things like, so Miz like gives Bunny a boot, and Morrison's like, "Yeah, there's your rabbit's foot," or something like that.
That's good.
Something like that.
And this was largely just showcasing Bad Bunny, and like Miz was, you know, just going with everything. He took an arm drag, sent to the floor. Bad Bunny did a tilt-a-whirl head scissors on Miz, and the crowd's impressed with this. And then Miz cuts him off, and this is where they get the heat on Bad Bunny as he's trying to get to Damian Priest. So he had to sell for like longer than you would have thought. They end up getting the tag, and Priest and Bunny hit Falcon arrows. Miz and Morrison go to the floor. Priest hits a dive, and then Bad Bunny hits his high cross to the floor. Priest goes for this finisher, but it's countered with the skull-crushing finale. Bad Bunny breaks it up, and then in the spot that will probably get circulated everywhere, Bad Bunny hits a Canadian Destroyer onto John Morrison on the floor. Michael Cole doesn't know what to call this, and Booker calls it the Bunny Destroyer. And Priest then puts Miz on his shoulders in the ring, elevates him, and Bunny comes off with a crossbody, pinning The Miz in 15 minutes and 2 seconds. I think for the entire goal of what Bad Bunny was designed to accomplish, the work he put into this, and then the final product, I don't know how you can look at this as anything but a very successful experiment that they did. I thought he came off well. They made him the star of the match here, and I did think it was 100% the right call to make it a tag match. I think that helped it a lot, having all four in there as opposed to just Bad Bunny and Miz.
100%. Yeah. I thought, from a co-promotional standpoint, from an entertainment standpoint, and from, a WrestleMania, like, celebrity standpoint, I thought this was a home run. And I think, unless your name is Pat McAfee, I don't know if anybody would have been more capable of a better celebrity integration. Somebody who clearly took this very seriously, trained a lot for it, and used all of his present mainstream promotional power to help push your brand. And he delivered a good match at the end of it. So I think he was a great addition to this WrestleMania. I thought The Miz and Morrison did a tremendous job leading it. And Damian Priest, did a great job filling in the rest. He looked very confident on a stage like this. He looked very deserving of a spotlight like this. So I think he benefits the most from it all.
Yeah, I echo all of those sentiments. I thought this came off really well. Like, the match was like, it delivered in a good way. They were very smart. It was probably a very meticulously laid out match, but everyone did their part. So I thought that this definitely worked. And that takes us to the main event. I was looking at my watch. It's like, we got 3 hours to go, I feel like. I'm all like, this is crazy.
I'm like, don't we have a multi-man tag team match to, like, in between this or something?
Where's the concert? Yeah.
Yeah.
Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair for the SmackDown Women's Championship. The second this video package started running, this was pretty much the Men in Black moment where you were supposed to forget everything that had happened prior to tonight. The build-up meant nothing. It was, she won the Royal Rumble. She challenged Sasha Banks, the match, in 3 stages. That's all this was. And I mean, we did have a recent caller bring this up, and it was like interesting to look at that. I don't think this will work for any match, but I think if you have a match that people want to see and want it to succeed, providing that they don't go so far off the deep end, it's an extremely forgiving audience and one that will ultimately remember the circumstance. No one will ever think of Reginald when they look back at this match. They're only going to remember this match. And they had you gripped by this video package before we even got to the entrances, which were just utter superstar, high quality entrances that made you feel that this is going to be an incredible presentation that we're about to see.
It was the Deborah integration of Austin versus Rock for WrestleMania 17. It, like, dominated the build in the weeks leading up to it, but the night of, completely forgotten, not mentioned at all in that My Way video. It was exactly like that. And man, I just wish sometimes they can take things as seriously as they do from the get-go, thinking about the incredible emotion leading up to this moment that they could have pulled and dragged out and exposed and promoted for weeks. But instead, for me, like, it was not even so much like, the trash talking that they did after the Rumble leading to this moment. What dominated the story of this match was the fact that this was, for the first time, 2 black women main eventing a WrestleMania. That completely trumps any sort of scripted programming that you could have had, any sort of promo you could have had. I wish they even had promos, like, from the 2 of them talking about that fact. But no, the moment that we arrived here and seeing the 2 of them face off and seeing the emotion on Bianca Belair's face, it immediately became, to me, the defining moment of this particular WrestleMania. I don't know if it'll be for, coming off a night 2, but something tells me coming off of both nights on both WrestleManias, I'm probably going to be thinking about this specific moment the most.
Oh, I think it's going to be the enduring moment of this match was the bell ringing and the 2 of them looking at one another. First of all, I just, like, the entrances, it's not like it was like these gigantic, elaborate entrances by past WrestleMania standards, but I just thought both came out and they felt like utter superstars walking out.
Yeah. And it's like, I understand in wrestling, you could put anybody in a main event, but I think there's being put in the main event and being deserving of a main event. And absolutely, like, the moment these 2 got in there, and look, not even talking about the match that they delivered, but just like the level of superstardom that the 2 of them had, this felt right. This felt like it should have been the main event. And absolutely, even if it was Drew and Lashley,
enhanced the moment, because this would not have had the same air of importance if this had been anywhere else on the card. This would not have come across like this if this was the opener, if this was in the middle, if this was second from the top. They were put in this main event spot and the audience was completely on board because they wanted this to feel like a historical match, because that's what they viewed this as soon as the match was made, and they just wanted it elevated to that status. They got that, and it was pretty much in spite of a pretty lackluster build that is ultimately not going to be remembered for this. So yeah, as Wai mentioned, the bell rings and they are both like fighting back tears. It was really significant here. Like, you had just set the tone that this is going to be something really special. And they had a lot to live up to by that same, just the stage that they had pretty much crafted for themselves. Belair gets sent to the floor and Banks goes for the suicide dive, and Belair rolls through, lifts her, and then military presses her over, up the steps and into the ring. Some of the power spots they showcased with Belair were spectacular. Like the deadlifts with the verticals that she did on top of this. Like, they really got the strength aspect across. I really like those parts of the match.
You know, what really impressed me was the fact that I feel like I've seen enough of Bianca Belair to know the extent of her, I guess, you know, strength and her agility, but there were surprises in this match that she kept pulling out that she hadn't pulled out in the rest of her career. And yeah, it just kind of tells you, much like Cesaro, this is somebody who is on a superhuman level in terms of, you know, agility and strength, and completely worthy of this top spot on the biggest show of the year.
So Belair attempts a 450 and lands on the knees of Banks, and this gets Banks into control. She does this double springboard tornado DDT, hits a splash, and can't get the 3 count. She's getting frustrated. Banks several times used Belair's ponytail against her, including locking up her arm while applying the Banks statement. Some creative stuff, and Banks is able to shift around and eventually gets to the rope. Belair gets put in the tree of woe, and Banks misses with the double knees, and this time Belair hits the 450 splash, but it's only a 2 count, and Belair is just losing it. She can't believe that Banks kicked out of this. She goes for the kiss of death, but Banks grabs the ponytail to avoid the move. Belair grabs it back and whips Banks so hard with this ponytail. Like, the snap of this thing was gigantic.
It was like as loud as any Walter chop I've heard. Like maybe even louder, honestly. And the fact that this came across so well on camera, on the biggest stage of them all, and the fact that this was, I mean, I'm sure she's whipped people before, but I don't think it's ever made a smack this loud. I don't know how it did, but man, like, you can't predict these like slaps and chops sometimes. But they lucked out on like possibly the loudest hair whip chop I'll probably ever hear in my life for this big stage.
And after the hair whip spot, they get into this struggle, and just out of nowhere, Belair lands the KOD. 1, 2, 3. And the big call is Michael Cole. Sasha Banks kicked out. She kicked out. And it's quiet. And I'm like, did I just hear that? And I rewound it. And Michael Cole just goes silent and says, gotta correct myself. I thought she had kicked out. I was not sure. And I was like, man, of all the calls to, like, listen, I give a lot of leeway. I think this guy gets a lot of negativity thrown his way, but man, like, the main event of such a big match, and like, you watch, she was not like adjusting or any, like, there was no kick out. The shoulders were glued to the mat. There was no tease of a kick out.
No, I think the only way you would have expected a kick out is if you were, you know, maybe used to the pacing and the layout of a big match like this, people kicking out of each other's finishers at least once.
I thought it was going to be a near fall. Like, I didn't feel this was going to be the finish.
I like that it wasn't, you know, keeps that finisher strong and like, you know, delivers the moment though, you know, like without, okay, it might have sent this match to the next gear if they did each kick out of it, but I think more, you know, more important to keep a new champion's finisher strong throughout the rest of her reign. So I forgive Cole a little bit for, like, you know, being able to mistake something like that, but this is a moment I think they might go back and edit.
This is like, you know, scoring the, like, overtime winner in the Game 7, like in the Stanley Cup, and calling the wrong player that
he
scored
saved
the goal.
it. No, he didn't save it.
Oh no, it's a goal. It's a goal. I thought a really, strong match between these two. I thought that this was the highlight of the show for me. I think for most, and it just felt like a superstar making performance for Bianca Belair. But I thought both, if you want to make the comparison to, the 3-way 2 years ago, like I thought this
was a better match.
This was a better match, a better presentation. Mm-hmm. This was what you wanted out of that 3-way. And, these two, I think they benefited from the fact that they were not following 6 hours as well. And that's to the benefit that they did that for this. It might have been a different situation if they had to follow 6 hours, but they didn't. And this came off much better to me than that 3-way 2 years ago. But, I just thought this was a great presentation, a great end, and it feels like you have really created a superstar in Bianca Belair. And her family after just jumping up and down.
Great.
They're saying the father almost fell over the barricade. Amazing.
Yeah. He almost fell over his chair when Bianca won the Rumble, and he did fall over his chair, didn't he? He almost fell over the barricade. The man just falls everywhere. It was a wonderful moment. I think so rarely in WrestleMania it feels like we have like this sort of perfect storm of like a main event with historical significance and a match that meets that level of expectation. And we got that here. The feud is in the past because everything else was so strong. I'm never going to think about Reginald again in the context of this thing. I'm simply going to think about this match in this moment. I thought it was a great match with a lot of creativity and, incredible ambition and incredible pressure. Can you imagine stepping into this? Sasha, absolutely, I understand. But man, Bianca Belair has she's relatively new. How long has she even been training? For the fact that she was able to come out here, withstand this amount of pressure, be in tears at the start of this thing, and still, once the bell rang, deliver a pretty flawless performance where she just had to accomplish superhuman feats of strength. That's incredible. That is, you put her up there immediately as incredible performer that should be promoted as one of your top stars. So she was incredible here. She was the right person for it. She, delivered some great. I wish she delivered more promos. The way that we initially saw her on that, was it Chronicle or something? I wish we had more of that.
They did right before the Rumble.
I wish we had more of that Belair throughout it. But nonetheless, she is the right person for this. And I think for Sasha Banks, even though I wasn't very impressed by her transition to being a heel, the moment she got to this point, she absolutely, I think, felt like a perfect villain to play against Bianca Belair. This, to me, caps off just a monumental return for Sasha Banks. Everything she's done since she's come back has been unbelievable, including now main eventing in WrestleMania. She's on my list of, greatest female of all time in the WWE. I mean, give me an argument. I put her ahead of Charlotte. I put her ahead of Trish. So she cements that with a performance like this. It was a moment that I'm still kind of living off of the thrill of, and I'll definitely be revisiting this in my best of at the end of the year.
No, the significance of it, the what they pulled off in the match, this will be one of those all-time remembered matches and title wins at WrestleMania. I think for sure. So, where do you go on this show? Thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs in the middle. I can't go thumbs up on the show overall. I thought it was I thought the final 30 minutes of the show were spectacular. The show, the Bad Bunny thing worked out really well. I enjoyed Cesaro and Rollins for what it was. I thought the steel cage match was not much. I think the tag team turmoil match, I'm with you. I think Natalya and Tamina, just in a straight up match with one team, with the Riot Squad, you give them 7-8 minutes. That would have been a much better choice to go with. I thought the tag team turmoil match really dragged it down. So I'm going thumbs in the middle, but it's kind of that main event was pretty goddamn great.
I always like weight a show probably more towards the main event and any sort of significant match, you know. So if I leave a show with a strong main event, I'm probably going to weigh it better. I give it maybe about a 7.2 out of 10, you know, 7 point, yeah, like, you know, mid sevens, yeah, perhaps.
I think we're in the same range. Like that,
Yeah.
to me, that main event, like it's like that's going to leave a very, very positive impression of the entire show for people. Much like the Boneyard match on night one last year.
Yeah, I suppose so. But you know, I don't watch a WrestleMania simply for the in-ring action. You know, that's to me almost a bonus. And maybe I expect it for certain matches, but for me, it's like the grandeur, it's the production, it's maybe more so the feeling and the storyline.
You
and
had
I
all
think
of that in that main event. Yeah.
You had it in the
all of it.
opening. You know, like even the unpredictability of the rain delay, I thought was something special that we never had before in a WrestleMania. So it contributes to you know, making this a pretty memorable night.
The forum gives this a 6.71 out of 10.
At this point, we'd like to throw it to the Zoom room, and we thank all of the Double Double Ice Cap and Espresso patrons who have joined us for this live show. So many of you guys want to get your thoughts in, and this is a time maybe we should remind everybody, Double Double Ice Cap and Espresso patrons of the Post Wrestling Cafe have access to all of our Raw, Dynamite, and SmackDown reviews every single week. So a quick plug for that if you choose to support us at those levels. Tomorrow, we will be back for all patrons. So all patrons will get a chance to join us live immediately after WrestleMania Night 2 to call in and give us their thoughts. Let's start off here with Hansi. Hansi, what did you think of WrestleMania?
It exceeded my expectations. Like the build, I didn't really, obviously I called into your show a couple of times with how I wasn't interested in the build, but I thought like a lot of the matches delivered. I didn't mention it on your show because I thought it probably wouldn't happen, whatever, and I thought it'd be a curse. But I was saying on Twitter a lot of the time, I was like, people want the swing from Cesaro. I want the UFO to break out, and I actually got it. I was actually surprised. That's the first time he actually did the UFO, so I was actually like really excited. I thought that was a good match. Bad Bunny was awesome. Even though the tag match was built on comedy, I did like the psychology of the veterans keeping AJ away from Omos. And I know it came across heelish, but I looked at it as like they just didn't want to get their ass kicked by a bigger guy who they have no idea what he's going to do. But I thought it all built up well until he got in, and I don't know how they're going to fare off as champions, but I dug the match though. It was a good performance.
That moment worked. Like almost coming in felt like a big deal. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and then I'll finish off with the main event, man. I can't say enough. I know I'm probably being hyperbolic, but whatever. I just felt like this match needed to deliver, and I was like, oh my god, if it doesn't deliver, like the criticism on Twitter, like going, oh, they didn't deserve to main event, like it didn't deliver. I think it exceeded my expectations. It was on another level. I think it's an all-timer of a main event, in my personal opinion. Like I had to like go back and look at like different main events and all that, but I thought this was like one of like the best main events in a WrestleMania, and I'm so happy that they did it. I just think it was awesome. And just before I go, I just want to say, since I manifested the UFO coming to life in WrestleMania, I am hoping that Daniel Bryan, for some reason, I know it's not going to happen, but I hope that he brings out Final Countdown for his entrance theme, because he was hinting at a new Daniel. If that happens, I'm going to go lose my shit. But guys, thanks for all the coverage, man. I enjoy all the shows, obviously. It's cool kicking it, even if there's a handsy imposter in the chat room. It's all good or whatever. But thank you for the coverage and everything, man. I've been enjoying the show. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you to both of the Hansies in the chat room. Let's go to Jeremy up next. Jeremy, are you there?
Yeah. Hey, Way.
Hey, Jeremy. How's it going?
Jeremy, you were at the show tonight?
Pretty good, yes. I was there dodging storms and watching wrestling.
Well, tell us what the rain delay, what that was like. First, getting into the stadium, and then the delay. Tell us like what you had to go through.
Sure. So I got to the stadium around 5:30, and as I was walking to the stadium, they came over with their first thunderstorm announcement that everybody needed to clear the seating bowl and go out to the concourse. So they waved us like right on into the stadium. I'm not sure if it was due to the thunderstorm coming or what, but there weren't any temperature checks at all. The questionnaire that they said we needed to fill out and show, nobody asked for that. They just scanned our tickets and gave let us on in. And then whenever I got in the concourse, Everybody was just huddled together. There wasn't any social distancing, anything like that. So I was kind of taken back with that since that was right as I got in. But other than that, during the show, it was good. So we got in after that. It poured rain for a couple hours. At 5:30, I stayed out in the concourse to probably about 7:30, and then decided to get on in because it looked like the rain was kind of stopping. So I got to my seat. Thought we were all good, and then as soon as it goes through the big opening, then they have another announcement to clear the stadium. It was just at least it was a once in a lifetime thing. Hopefully, weather delay during a wrestling show. It was interesting time.
So what's the prognosis for tomorrow? Like, it looks like there's a chance of this happening tomorrow.
Yeah, it's a really bad weekend. I mean, the forecast is calling for thunderstorms all day tomorrow. So who knows? I talked to one of the guest services people at the stadium because I didn't know, if they would be able to go on with the show. If the fans weren't, the fans might just not be allowed in there, and they said that they wouldn't be able, they wouldn't be allowed to do anything, even performing wise, if there were any lightning in the area, anything like that. Yeah. So I don't know what you would do if you would delay it a day or what you do. I don't have any idea.
I don't know how you would delay it a day.
I hope that they figure it out. I mean, I don't know if you just delay it hours or what. It was just like a baseball game, you pick it up in the middle of the night or what you do. I mean, I'm looking forward to the card tomorrow night a little bit more than tonight, but to me, tonight was just really fun, just being out at a wrestling show. I was in the upper level, so everybody there was just there to have a good time, and it was fun to just chant with other wrestling fans. And there was this little boy, he couldn't have been more than 6 or 7 in the row behind me, and he was just so awesome. Like, the first match, he was cheering for Bobby Lashley the whole time. It was fun the whole night. So it was just fun being out at a wrestling show again.
That's good to hear.
Were there any surprise crowd reactions from your area, at least?
No, other than that little boy behind me. I didn't expect him to be cheering for Bobby Lashley the whole first match, but I can't really think of any. There were. It seemed like people were just kind of happy to be at a wrestling show. It kind of felt maybe the same way that I was.
Right.
One thing that kind of surprised me was a lot of people cheered for both people in the match. Mm-hmm. The dueling chants back and forth, just happy to see, in-ring action live and the whole spectacle of the event. I thought it, was pulled off really, really well for, all the stuff they had to deal with, other than, I wish it would have been a little bit more safe COVID wise, but it's Florida, so I didn't expect it. But even though I do have to say, whenever I went to AEW last night, they at least did temperature checks to get in. So, I'm not sure.
It's good to know. Like, that's, that's something that I think people would want to know, like, that they're going to these, like, how much they are, putting all these measures into effect, especially with something at such a larger scale here. I mean, that's, to me, something that, people going tomorrow that weren't there tomorrow, that they should know about this.
Yeah, and like I say, I mean, I'm not sure if it. I went in. I think it was Gate C, whichever one closer to Lot 6. There, if anybody going, and it's interested in that. But I'm not sure if it's the same thing at every gate. I'm not sure if they just didn't do it because of the thunderstorm coming, and they're the security guards were freaking out that they needed to get people undercover, or what. It could have just been because of that. But I just didn't even see the station for it, so yeah, it's just, definitely for people coming, just be aware of your own, your own space. It's a risk that you take. I've been fully vaccinated, so I think I'm good to go. So, it was just fun being out tonight. I really appreciate your guys' work all the time.
Well, thanks very much for the live report, and fingers crossed that tomorrow goes without a hitch.
Yeah, I hope so.
All right. Thanks, Jeremy.
Thank you, Jeremy. I hope you call back in tomorrow.
They're really lucky way that they, the usual start time of WrestleMania has always been, it's been 7 Eastern the last few years. This year they pushed it up to 8. I mean, had it been the normal start time this year, I mean, you would have had, they were very lucky the way it was, where the delay happened right after the show started. And they were, I mean, it was 20 minutes or so. It could have been much longer if they had had the earlier start time.
And can you imagine the amount of promos that they would
No, I definitely cannot imagine what the level of promos would have been like 45 minutes into such a delay.
Oh my God. We would have had a single interviews with every person in the tag team Turmoil match. I bet everybody from night 2 probably coming in. A lot of JR and Jerry Lawler and Booker T and JBL on the panel, I bet.
You know what they could have aired is that segment with Paul Heyman and Edge on Talking Smack that was amazing. It's an incredible segment. It's maybe the most effective thing going into WrestleMania. I thought it was spectacular.
I hope they play it tomorrow on the kickoff.
They should. They could spend 10, 12 minutes playing the whole thing.
It would be better than, whatever panel discussion I think they could come up with. So yeah, highly recommended people check that out. Let's go up next to Rory. Rory, what did you think of WrestleMania?
It was very, very good. It was just such a weird start to the whole thing. Like, it was just so strange to have that wait. I've never had that wait before, with the weather delay and everything like that. And from there, the card was kind of very difficult to sort of get into to start off with, but then it kicked in and it was pretty good. I watched it personally from a bar here in Melbourne. We went in there. There was people there from MCW, the Melbourne City Wrestling. There was for instance, got the free shirt and everything like that. They were handing these out throughout the day and. Cool. And I did an interview thing for what's called WWE Now Down Under. It's kind of like a new internet sort of show that the WWE are doing for Australia. They interviewed me and did all that sort of stuff. So you can check that out if you want. It was a great show. The main event, can't speak highly enough of it. I can still hear the hair whip. I can still hear that ringing in my ear. That was just insane. That was just so intense.
True blood.
That was impressive. Shane and Braun was what it was, sort of thing. But it was good. I'm sorry.
I'm kind of curious what some of the reactions in the bar were to, certain moments of the show, including like Hulk Hogan. What was the response like?
Well, for us, we know what it is. We just, there's a bit of a groan, so to speak. They're just like, here we go, and we're just like, oh, he's up there with Titus, which was awkward. The biggest reaction, I think, would have been Bobby retaining. That was because everybody thought Drew has it. Drew has this one. But no, to see Bobby retain, that got an audible reaction from everybody in the bar. It was that was a fun match. That was a very fun match. And I'm just happy that Bobby retained. I thought it was too soon for him to lose. He looks great with it. He's got a great character going on right now. For me, I think going forward, I think it's going to be Lesnar coming back on Raw. And potentially, maybe even a SummerSlam, if that's not too far away. But I can see it being Lesnar and Lashley at some point going forward.
All right. Sweet. Thank you very much for the call, Rory. Appreciate all the support. And, it's cool to hear people's reactions to or at least their live reactions wherever they're actually watching with crowds, because I haven't had that in so long.
You didn't survey the neighbors?
I could hear their reactions all night, so I could tell you exactly what they felt. Anyway, let's go to Nick up next. Nick, what do you think of WrestleMania?
What's going on, guys? Happy WrestleMania weekend. And congratulations, making it big time with Bad Bunny. So what's the deal? You guys get half of the Grammy now? You guys get some revenue from Spotify?
Everything. A
everything.
third.
You get a cut of the
2/3.
pie. Some
It's all
pay-per-view
ours.
points, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Really the highlight of his year, I think.
I would agree, totally.
Yeah.
I popped
Mhm.
big when I saw both your beautiful faces up there. I thought this show over delivered, in my opinion. I had such a great time watching this show, and I think it's easy to get caught up when you watch WWE Weekly. It's easy to get caught up in sort of the weekly grind of watching these programs week in and week out.
Most of it's not that great, or a lot of it's
Yeah.
not that great. I want to say.
And then I think when they pay off with moments like these and they kind of let their performers let loose in this capacity, they can really deliver. And I agree with everything everyone has said. It was Sasha and Bianca, to me, that just visceral moment before they locked up is gonna live long in the annals of wrestling. I think it's up there with I'm Sorry I Love You. I think it's up there with WrestleMania. I think for me personally, as a person of color, it's gonna live up in those tip-top moments for me. I think Bad Bunny is induct this man into the Hall of Fame right now. I think he was spectacular. I could not believe he did a Canadian destroyer or a bunny destroyer. And yeah, I just thought it was so good to just have fun watching a WWE show for a continuous stretched amount of time. I think it's really going to be interesting with the weather tomorrow, and it's something that I noticed during the Drew and Bobby match is that canvas and the turnbuckles and the ropes were super wet, and I could tell that they were really stepping kind of gingerly, and their boots didn't really have any traction underneath them. So
right.
and eventually by the Seth Rollins and Cesaro match, the ring had kind of dried and the ropes and the turnbuckles had dried a bit. I wonder if rain is going to be an issue for tomorrow more so than tonight. If you're going to see that sort of high risk stuff, or they're going to have to audible on the fly. But I think for what the conditions they had to deal with tonight, I think they dealt with them perfectly. But I'm interested to see if anything changes in that regard.
I mean, you mentioning that actually gives me a newfound respect for that cage match, because could you imagine standing on top of that cage?
Oh my God, no! I would be so terrified to do that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So yeah, it's a very good point. And you wonder what sort of precautions they have in place for stuff like that. I imagine wiping everything down before they at any moment that you can is something that they can do, but you can only do so much, right? So yeah, we'll have to see. It's another element to what potential surprise tomorrow is the weather. Thank you very much, Nick. Appreciate the call. Let's go up next to Professor Kevin. Kevin, what's going on?
Hey guys. Hey Wai. Hey John.
Hey Kevin.
Pretty cool to be talking to people who were actually on the show tonight. So this is neat. But I wanted to say that I don't watch Raw and SmackDown. I keep up with the shows through you guys, coming into these Zoom calls, listening to the Observer and their shows. That's how I keep up with the product. So tonight when the show started and they went to this rain delay, I was like, oh man, I already wasn't that excited about the build and about WrestleMania, and to have this rain delay start the show, I was thinking oh, this is going to be a terrible night. But I was watching the show with my wife, and after the rain delay ended, she commented to me, you weren't annoyed at the promos. It's like, you know what? You're right. Because they were improvised. They were real. They were organic. It felt like they were natural. And I thought that provided so much. And I just hope that going forward, there's more of that. I don't think there will be, to be honest. I mean, tonight on the show itself, it felt like there was piped in noise. It felt like it was a little overproduced. So I don't expect, a sudden change that they're going to, be less scripted and go more of that realness. But I hope they do, because I really found it refreshing. I'm buzzing still from the main event, from all the emotions there, because it was real. There was real emotion there, and the main event and in the rain delay. Those were the bookends of the show where we had all this real emotion.
When you think about, okay, so they do have moments where they allow their talent to improvise, and that's a show like Talking Smack, right? And John and I just talked about the great result that they just had, but few people are going to see that because it's something that they just relegate to the network or right. YouTube or something like that. This is the biggest stage possible that they could have had, and that they've given people live mics for, and they were forced into the position. But what was the worst that happened? Okay, Braun Strowman didn't cut a great promo, so what? But you had plenty of other people cut very good promos, And sink or swim, I think it was compelling TV. So, like, I hope this gives Vince confidence, or Kevin Dunn, whoever, to just let your performers speak in front of a crowd, you know?
I mean,
and if it's bad, it's bad. If it's good, it's great.
yeah, exactly. I'd rather listen to Braun kind of stumble through a promo and, not be, I'd rather have that than the choo-choo noises of him, running around on the floor. I'd much rather hear him kind of stumble through a promo and have it be, his real emotion. I wanted to ask a question though. Cesaro won tonight. I saw Eddie Kingston on Twitter said, Cesaro is a professional wrestler, the likes we may never see again. And I know Cesaro's 40 years old. He's been in the WWE for a long time. Where do you think he goes after this win?
He's 40, but like he's got the body of like a fucking 21-year-old.
I know. He looks amazing.
Yeah, but it really like is, it was one of the, not the biggest story going into Mania, but it was a featured match that I think at the very least you try and do something with him, because like God knows we don't have this, this exclusive main event club where it's we just the numbers game. Like they need people, and not to say that you can, like, I would do Lashley and Cesaro before I would go to the Drew rematch. I think that you, like, if ultimately your destination is Drew, like go with Cesaro, go with Cesaro. Like if you move him to Raw or do something in the interim here, capitalize off of this. I think everyone will be disappointed if 2 months from now Cesaro is back in the same role, and he's been able to overcome, to me, a big obstacle is when you're pigeonholed at a certain level for so long, that's where the audience forever sees you and doesn't accept you any higher than that. And I think with Cesaro that you can largely get around that because they've never seen him go to the main event level and fail. He's just never touched that level in the company. So I think you could certainly do something more with him. But I mean, that's been the case for years. Like we'll see what happens.
It was funny hearing on commentary, they say, oh, Cesaro has this momentum and then it stops, and he has this momentum and then it stops. So it's like, yeah, but you guys are the ones that control his momentum more or less.
Jerry Lawler said, it finally feels like the fans have taken towards Cesaro. Are you?
Yeah. That was a stumbling block.
We've gotten over that he's Swiss. Finally. Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Kevin. For the call. Appreciate the call. Hochi, what's going on? What did you think of WrestleMania?
Hey guys, what's going on? Thought the show was awesome. Actually, that main event is going. The feeling I had when that main event started, like I got chills and just like was on my feet. I hadn't felt that for a wrestling match in a very long time, probably since like a teenager when I was watching the product. So that main event's gonna live rent free in my head for a very long time. I thought that was great. Go ahead.
How did it feel? Like I would say the last time that feeling kind of came for me was Kofi Mania, but I thought this was bigger than that for me for some reason. It was the main event, I suppose, and like the match I enjoyed more than the Kofi Kingston Bryan match.
100%. Quality match wise, it was like above Kofi Mania, and I think more than anything else, I wanted to have that feeling for the triple threat in New York, like for when Becky won. Like that's what I wanted from that main event. But again, that show being 6 hours, everyone being exhausted at the end, and that match not really living up to that hype, couldn't get that from that. But then you add in also as well that me being a person of color and seeing, and I not only they mentioned it's the first time ever 2 African American women have main evented WrestleMania, but I think in general it's just for the first time ever 2 people of color in general have ever main evented WrestleMania. I might be mistaken on that. Just made it a lot more bigger for me in that sense, and to see the emotion in their faces is wow, incredible. I just saw a video on Twitter right now. I guess a fan caught Sasha like down in the barricades like after the match, and you can see like her smiling and like just I guess almost like on the verge of crying as well, just being happy about the moment and stuff. It's just something that's going to live in my head for a while. I was going to ask you guys also, John, I saw that you retweeted this, but they had Vladimir, the super fan, there, and apparently they're putting out a documentary about him this summer on the network. What are your guys' thoughts on that? And I'll leave it with that. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you,
Yeah, they just put out the trailer. I mean, it's a WWE Network documentary, so it's it's a cool subject matter, I think, to do on someone that is so associated with WWF shows going back to like the early 80s, I think, is when you first see him like popping up at the Garden shows and just a fixture for the longest time.
I think it's a great idea. I mean, it's like you're producing these things for your cult audience, and it's your cult audience that recognizes and finds interest in somebody like Vladimir. Anytime like we see him out in public, people are trying to get photos with the guy, and for WWE to put their production power behind somebody like that, I think like in a way he's supposed to represent like the average person watching it. To a very different degree. Who else do you think they would honor?
Wait, they could do these like a whole chronicle. I mean, green shirt guy. I mean, there's like the whole crew was there in the front row. Like they were all back.
The ringside Jesus. Was Brock Lesnar guy there?
I didn't notice him. There was like going back like a Faith No More guy. So yeah, you could go through do a whole series on fans.
Can't wait. Let's go to Montreal. Kate, what did you think of WrestleMania Night 1? If you're there and if you're able to unmute.
Oh, unmute. Hello.
There you go. Yes.
Hey, okay, there we are. Sorry.
No
worries. A little bit of a snafu there. That main event was so good. And Sasha Banks is one of the reasons that I really got back into wrestling a few years ago, just because I was amazed seeing a woman do the kind of things that she was doing, and sort of to have followed her through it and finally get to see her main event WrestleMania. And I think that this was, other people said it, but I think that this was so much stronger than the triple threat a couple of years ago. I wasn't a big fan of that match, and I thought that it was made worse by the fact that the call at the end was so clearly botched when Ronda's shoulders were really obviously off the mat. So this one,
you had a botch call here too, but I mean, it didn't. I guess it wasn't the fault of the performers.
No. I guess botched call is like is a little bit better. They're moving up.
Going back to our point earlier about like editing stuff, I fully believe that they will clean that up afterwards, and that finish will sound flawless when you watch it on the network.
Oh, I'm sure Cole is re-recording the ending now, as we speak.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think what was going through my head though too, as I was watching this, and again, like this felt, as a woman, this felt like much more like the first main event for women. I don't know, that might seem a little weird, but the like having just two women facing off the way you really want the main event of WrestleMania to be, it felt more impressive to me this time around than it did a couple of years ago. One of the things that kept going through my head though was that up until they almost got bullied into it by a lot of, I think, online chatter. They had not planned for this to be the main event. This was they only announced, I think, yesterday that it was going to be the main event of the show. And I'm trying to think of what the audience reaction would have been like. Say if you just reversed the positions of this match and Drew and Lashley. Like, I think that makes the entire show a very, very different and probably a lot worse experience.
I couldn't have seen them ending the show with the Lashley Drew finish the way it was laid out. Like it's just, to me, like this was, knowing these finishes, I think this was the only way you could have, bookended the show with these two matches. But you look at it though, like in terms of if you're just like in 2019, like Ronda, Becky, and Charlotte, like that was the match that year to close it. Like regardless, like it was not just because it was the historic nature of it. Like it was the most pushed program with your biggest star at the time in Ronda that was on that show. And for this year, like you could certainly say that like McIntyre and Lashley had been the bigger promoted match up until the show when they went with Banks and Sasha, or with Banks and Belair, but they absolutely made the right decision that people are going to remember this for, what the end product was, not so much the weeks leading up to it.
Well, I suppose another question is, do you think that we would have had this main event if this was a one night WrestleMania?
Oh, no, I don't. Not at all. I still think it would have. I still would have liked to have seen it as the main event, but no, I don't. I think that with the lineup they have, there's no way that on a one night, the Roman versus Bryan versus Edge would not be the main event. So this is, I guess, it's sort of lucky that they have been, that they did it this year over 2 nights. But I would say that the last 2 matches on the show kind of took it from being pretty tepid to me. Like I liked moments, I didn't like other moments. The last 2 matches really delivered. I have to say that I spent the first 2 matches with my heart in my mouth, because you could tell that the canvas on the mat was kind of greasy and slippery, and you could tell that the ropes were. You could see it right away with Drew and Lashley.
Yeah.
That they weren't hitting their moves as smoothly as they usually do, and then you could really see it with the tag team turmoil match. And so I was just staring at that, going just like, someone's going to get hurt. So it was probably a little edgier for the beginning. But that's to me, I get the last 2 matches made the night, and I guess I can be happy with that. I don't know if I'm trying to decide if I think I'm going to be more into the show tomorrow or less. I don't know if anything is going to top the feeling of that main event tonight, but we shall see.
I don't either. Thank you so much, Kate, for the call. Hope to hear from you maybe tomorrow. Let's go up next to let's go to MJ. MJ from FL. MJ from FL. What's going on?
What's up, guys? How are you? I'm buzzing. That was some main event.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I don't know what botch is being referenced, because I actually so this is interesting because Peacock, you can't rewind. So I had to wait for the whole show to end to actually go back and watch the end of the show. I did not see it.
Just so you know, we're talking about Michael Cole calling or mistaking the last pinfall for a kick out rather than the finish.
Okay.
That's what we're talking about.
That might have been part of it then. I did not pick up on that,
Okay.
but no, I thought
it was not a move or anything from the performers.
Got it. No, I thought that was fantastic. What a finish. What a main event. Wrestling is always its best when it feels real and it brings out real emotion. And I think in this day and age, there's nothing more real than actually knowing what it means to these performers. Last night I called in and talked about Sasha's interview where she's in tears, and then seeing that in real life today was unbelievable. You saw it at the beginning of the show, and I thought that set the tenor for what was then a very awkward first part of Mania, but the emotion was there, and that played out throughout the whole night. And so I'm buzzing if you guys can hear my voice, because I just finished watching this probably 5 minutes ago.
Oh, yeah, it's a spectacular main event. I think that's a common reaction most had.
Yeah. So often, I think they try to fabricate these big moments of emotion. You think to any of the major WrestleManias, even I don't know, even Brett, winning at WrestleMania 10. It's or any of the Hogan ones. They're fabricated moments and they work, but sometimes there are so many moments that are just genuine and realistic that are sitting right there for them to take. Kofi Mania, I thought, was one of those that eventually they realized. And this was one of them that I wonder when they really kind of, decided this to be the main event, because we could have not had this moment. And it was there.
This feels very earned by these performers, by Bianca and by Sasha. And what I mean by that is the big triple threat in New York or in New Jersey with Rousey. She's the huge star coming in. Charlotte was very much added to that, and people were not really sure why she's getting thrown into this. This storyline, the video package, certainly, if you were not following week to week, it was very concise. And these 2 performers, Bianca Belair was a standout for me a few years ago in NXT, and Sasha's been the blueprint. I mean, that's pretty much a real thing. And It's just so cool seeing it. And I hope for Kevin Owens and Sammy tomorrow, like if you were just tuning in tonight and you caught Kevin Owens's brief promo, that now has this kind of emotion. I thought the Drew promo did the same thing for the main event, even though you were getting it a little bit delayed. He certainly conveyed that as well as like what this meant to him, to like have this moment be disrupted again. Pollock, just want you to know, my buddy took your advice and not only bet submission on tomorrow night's main event, but he did it for the men's match tonight, and that paid 6-1. So to the moon, to the moon.
You're halfway there.
Talk to you guys tomorrow. Awesome shout out to Up Next. That tailgate was great. And Way, great to see you there. Take care.
Yeah, it was awesome. Had weather reports and everything throughout the thing. It was a lot of fun. For? Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, MJ. Let's go up next to, I believe this is Bill. Bill, somebody who was in attendance. Are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you, Bill.
Good.
And hold on a second. Hold on a second, Bill. John, do you recognize Bill?
I do not.
He is the man responsible for bringing us to WrestleMania tonight.
This Bill.
What's going on, Bill? Thank you for doing that.
No worries. Sad to report, though, that the head gimmick has died a death this evening.
Oh, dear.
What a way to go out, though.
They were shredded by the time I left the show. They were so wet, but it was fun while it lasted.
You truly maximize the value of those things, I have to say, because where have they been?
Well, they made their debut at the Royal Rumble. I think it was 2017, and they've been to Raws.
Styles.
Yes, Raws, SmackDowns, and WrestleMania. 2 WrestleManias, I think, actually. But the Orlando WrestleMania, you couldn't see them because we didn't have as good as seats. As a matter of fact, I bought these seats just at 1:00 this afternoon.
Oh wow!
Wow.
Yeah, because they had a lot still for sale today. I just had a couple of quick comments. First off, I don't know if it showed through at the beginning of the show when all the performers were on the stage, but you know, they always say, yeah, the people in the crowd mean a lot to us. You could see it in their faces. There were a lot of people, a lot of performers that had tears in their eyes, having people back in the stadium. So I hope that came through on the program.
Rhea Ripley for sure. Like they closed up
yes.
on it. And yeah, I'm sure several.
Yeah, we were right beside Rhea Ripley, and we saw that very clearly without the aid of a camera. A couple things. I enjoyed the AJ Styles match with Omos. I like the fact that he pinned the New Day with just one foot. As soon as I saw him standing over him, I thought he's got to put his foot on him to pin him. So I enjoyed that. I agree with you guys. I have no idea where they'll go with that from this point forward with his limited skill set. Speaking of a skill set, I was really impressed with Bad Bunny. He really, you heard that he was taking it really serious, but it really showed through. I think that might have been the best use of a celebrity in a match in the history of the WWE. And lastly, I don't know if you saw it after the main event. What a main event that was. They were the 2 best wrestlers on the show, period. But I don't know if you saw it. Sasha, when she was on the floor after the match, had a huge gash across her stomach from where she got hit with the hair. At first, I thought that couldn't have been a real sound. Then I thought, well, maybe she had the vinyl ring gear. And then I saw that, and that was just crazy how loud that was. The last thing I wanted to ask is, when the main event started, how was the sound on the program? Because for the first couple of minutes, it was really quiet in the arena. It took some building, and I don't know. You guys were talking about piped in sound. I don't know if it was really loud at the beginning of that match or quiet, because it seemed to me very quiet. I could hear individuals yelling, somebody with a whistling, things like that. So I was curious what it sounded like to you guys.
You know, Honestly, I was just kind of like lost in the moment itself that I don't know how much attention I was really paying into it, but it did not stand out to me like it was especially quiet. How about you, John?
I mean, it was, it's not like they were going wild or anything, but I also didn't sense it was, completely quiet either. I'd probably have to go back to look at that specific part of the match, though.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thanks a lot. I appreciate it, and long live the heads. May they rest in peace.
There you go. Their
Thank you
final
for
resting spot at WrestleMania.
Thank you for everything you do for us, Bill. It's always appreciated. Our last call of the evening on this night one of our WrestleMania post show. New Jersey, Brandon, are you there?
Hey, what's going on? Good morning.
Good morning. Yes.
How are you? I'll be brief.
Well.
It's a long night, and it's spilling into the morning, and you guys look fatigued.
Are you working this weekend?
No, I got the weekend off. I'm so happy, elated
To watch Marvin Vittori?
Yeah. Yeah, that was fun, hey man. And
dominating Kevin Holland for 5 rounds.
And Jurgen De Castro got face planted, which is awesome. Shout out to Eric Marcotte, his favorite fighter, Jurgen De Castro. I'll be brief. I love the main event. Thought it was a monumental moment. I mean, echoing everybody's sentiments. It was tremendous, and I loved Omos' spot on the show. I thought he accounted for himself well. What do you think of his outfit? It was kind of like nightclubbish.
Yeah, these are all points that we have brought up. I think that if you wanted to have gone a little further, I think that there was the natural of him doing a submission so that you could have had Kofi yelling "No Moss."
Thanks, Jerry.
All hail the king.
Oh man.
And one more thing.
Yes, one more.
I got nothing. I'll talk to you later.
Maybe I'll go to you earlier, Brandon, so that people will take all of your points.
Listen, the theme of tonight's show is the pressure of going on last. Okay, it's you've been in this position a lot, Brandon, so you know what it entails.
You are the main event.
I appreciate you. I love you guys. Good night.
All right.
Thank you, Brandon. You notice how we never say it back? It's just
it's implied.
I'm just not. Yeah, it's implied. Like it's a very difficult thing to vocalize, but we feel the same, Brandon, as always. Any feedback on the forum, John?
There is. Are we going to it?
Let's go to some of it. Yes,
okay.
We can't do all of it, unfortunately. But
okay, let's. We're gonna skim through these. Barack from the UK. The initial delay made for some comedy, but the show kicked off with a bang. Was surprised that Lashley retained. Seth and Cesaro put on a great match. Both looked like $1 million. Bad Bunny gave the best celebrity performance since Stephen Amell and was genuinely an entertaining watch. I wouldn't, as Way said, put him at the. I think Pat McAfee is the high point.
Standard. Yeah.
Main event was fantastic, he says.
Brandon from Oshawa says, really fun show tonight. Nothing was bad. I wasn't fond of Sasha and Bianca main eventing, but they pulled it off. The star of the show for me was Bad Bunny, though. I've been enjoying him since the Rumble, and his training really showed here. A lot of credit goes towards Miz and Morrison, too, for helping him look great.
Ben from Vancouver asks, who do you see as the next challenger for Lashley? I see Keith Lee or The Fiend as the only new possibilities after WrestleMania. The Fiend would be a terrible idea. Keith Lee, I think, once he is good to return, I think will be put into a prime slot. I did go and look this back. So last year they didn't do the superstar shakeup after Mania. They just waited into the draft in the fall. But again, they can do whatever they want. But if you're just looking at these rosters and their current makeup, I think you have the rematch with Drew. And that's probably what Lashley is looking at for the immediate future, is probably continuing this program, but they do need to develop some people on Raw. I don't know if like Orton or The Fiend are great options in their present form right now. Like, I guess Lashley moving and becoming a babyface, I think that happens at some point, but it looks like they're actively trying to hold that off by what they've done lately with the Hurt Business and trying to keep him as a heel.
Feels like they might be, they will have to at least do the Drew rematch first. I have to think
that would make sense. They've got a month until the next pay-per-view. I think it's May 16th is the next pay-per-view. So they've got a full month, and maybe you go to it then.
All right, let's go to Counterparts, who says, I thought this way over-delivered as I thought this would be the weaker of the two nights. The weather delay didn't help, but the spot to open with the acknowledgement of the return of the live crowd was a plus. Some on-the-fly promos showed who is good at improv and who isn't. The matches themselves, with the exception of the women's gauntlet, were a lot better than expected.
B from New York. I'm sure flaws will be found. The entirety of the women's tag is one of them, but for the first night back for fans, it's hard to walk away from tonight without being fully satisfied. Outside of the mentioned match, everything else either lived up to expectations or exceeded them quite a bit. Timing, structure, body part, foreshadowing with the hair. Banks and Belair pulled off one of the best Mania main events in recent memory. What a star-making performance for one of WWE's most important rising stars. Bad Bunny. Everyone involved, from the four in the match to Gulak and Pierce as trainers, deserve a prize for that performance. Similarly for AJ and the New Day, who made the anticipation and follow-through with Omos look tremendous.
And lastly, because we are going a bit late tonight, let's go to Ben, who says, the weather delay was a bit of a nightmare for the UK, as Mania now finishing at 5 a.m. is not ideal when we have to do it again tomorrow. Wasn't their fault, but the positive was it showed the real standout promos. Kevin Owens with a masterclass. As for the matches, Cesaro and Rollins stole the show for me. Most other things were good besides the women's tag. Braun and Shane was pointless. He's jumped off way higher, so whatever he did would be a letdown. It's true, yeah. I mean, you know, let's remember he is 51. So like a 51-year-old man jumping off of a cage is still important, but because, yeah, we have seen higher, it's,
you know what I thought the spot was going to be was the shooting star press off the cage.
I thought so for a second too. I don't know if I want to see that.
I don't want to see that either. Like, listen, I was never one where like I got any kind of like great entertainment out of the Shane stunts. I understand their appeal. They're not my cup of tea, but especially more so at 51. I was fine with what they did tonight. I think that's satisfactory if you're looking for some big spot, but also wasn't, you're not frightened for the man not being able to get up, because that is what that guy is pushing, is, that bump that is, just too far and is much harder to get up from at 51 than 31.
Thank you, everybody, for your feedback, either through the excellent phone calls or some of the excellent feedback, some of which we didn't get to. But we hope to hear from all of you patrons tomorrow, postwrestlingcafe.com, live whenever the show ends for night 2. The Fiend, John. What are you anticipating the most?
Tomorrow, certainly the main event. I think that's going to be a spectacular match between those three. I'm really intrigued by that match for a lot of reasons. Let's just take a quick glance at the show tomorrow. We don't have to go through everything here, but we have Reigns, Edge, Bryan, Asuka and Rhea Ripley. Do you see them just doing the exact opposite of tonight, where the women's title match opens the show and the men close it?
I think that would be nice. Yeah, why not? You probably want to start off with like a very big note, and I think that would be a perfect place for it.
Randy Orton and The Fiend. We'll see what they pull off here. Like, you have to do something spectacular, and this can be the kind of match that either sinks the crowd or, at best, it's a pleasant surprise. We'll see. I don't know. I don't have high hopes for this one.
If they had announced this as a strictly cinematic Firefly Funhouse match, I think I'd be a lot more excited. Considering the fact that they haven't, tells me that they are going to go more straightforward with this, or at least for part of the match, and that gives me concern, because previous instances of that between these two have not been very good. So this can really go either way, but I'm sure we'll be talking about it plenty tomorrow.
Nigerian drum fight for the IC title. Kevin Owens against Sami Zayn. Obviously, you have to work in Logan Paul into this match, but they have the ability to go out there and have, like, you can tell, like, these two want to go out there and have the most spectacular match they can possibly have. It clearly means a ton to them. So I think everyone's intrigued in this one.
In terms of real life emotion, like, the previous caller said, to me, like, this is the biggest story outside of anything creative. Just the real life fact of these two best friends having a match on the biggest stage of their careers. That will be a big moment. And all this other shit with like the documentary and Logan Paul, to me, that's just like on the side. And I hope it doesn't dominate the match and we just get a purely Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn match.
It's on the side, but like the argument to that is that without Logan Paul, they probably are not getting this singles match. So, I mean, that comes with it. But, I mean, it struck me when Edge was talking about this, the fact that, and he said this in multiple interviews, like almost take aside the storyline that we're doing, like here are three guys that almost like have had different issues that have taken them away from wrestling. And it's like, you look at that, you look at what connected with Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair. What is the emotional attachment to Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn? It's like, you have these real life stories that are so much more compelling and deep than the storyline stuff. And it does make you question, like, tapping into that, you're going to get better emotion out of these people. Like, to give, you know, some of the people that we were critical of like the earlier promos, I'll tell you, if there was like a personal issue, I think that's a lot easier to tap into, to get, like, why was Kevin Owens' promo great? Because he tapped into his real life connection to Sami Zayn and he explained it. He wasn't trying to do comedy off of the announcer. He wasn't trying to get a witty one-liner in. And that's what so much of the promos are consisted of. It's like a match structure where our high spot is a comedic line so that there's something chantable after, or we get in a joke for the announcers to play off of. Like, that is the structure of so many of these promos. And I think if you were to tap into this, you would really engage people, and you'd engage your performers too, because they're going to sink their teeth into it that much more because it is real to them. And it's almost like the fact that Edge is in this main event on this 10-year anniversary, that I'm sure he was the one that put the two together. That's a pretty interesting thing that I would say most people that have been watching TV wouldn't even know that fact, much less like you've introduced that as, like, what incredible timing. You could not possibly plan that. It's fallen into your lap. But I can't say like they've done a whole lot with that aspect of the story.
Completely agreed. But you know what? If the match is great, we won't think about any of that stuff.
And then Riddle and Sheamus and the women's tag title match. Those are our 7 matches that we have announced. So probably like a similar showtime to tonight. And I would think that they have to be thinking of contingencies. Like, you know what can happen, and you have to be prepared for this tomorrow, that there could be a delay, could be longer. Maybe you'll escape things scot-free. Maybe you'll get lucky, but you at least have to have, I guess, plans in place. And I would imagine they're not going to be just scrambling for promos again. I would think that they have an effort of, this is if we're delayed 10 minutes, 30 minutes, 60 minutes. You kind of have to have, over the next 24 hours, those plans.
I think whatever panel is doing the kickoff will be prepared to go very long, because there's a very good Michael Cole, you know, again, and Byron Saxton and Samoa Joe will probably be told to prepare to go long.
Hey, Joe, we need you to do sit downs with everyone on the card, just in case we need to run them.
Would not be so bad. Would not be such a bad use. Yes.
Riddle, tell me about this scooter. Is it something that you're just trying to get to the destination, but you're not sure how to get there?
Jeez.
All right, that is going to wrap up our WrestleMania post show. Thank you to everyone. It was a packed Zoom room tonight, which we will be open to all patrons tomorrow. So it should be a big show tomorrow to cap off WrestleMania weekend. I just want to end off by sending a big shout out to John Cena, Andrew Thompson, Eric Marcotte, who did phenomenal work, as always, but especially this weekend, covering a ton of stuff. We have it all up on the website. John Cena watched like 10 million hours of pro wrestling over the last couple of days.
Spring Break, Impact, Hardcore Justice, reports from all of those shows up from Cena right now.
Yes. If we have time tomorrow night, maybe Way and I will give our thoughts on Ricky Shane Page and Nick Gage, which both of us watched at a extremely late hour last night.
I have actually not watched yet, so maybe I'll go ahead.
You did not watch it? Okay.
I watched most of Spring Break, though, so I haven't gone there. Did you see Jimmy Lloyd in the front row?
I saw him during the show, yeah. I think he was doing a show after WrestleMania tonight, too.
Wow. Okay, I hope he got out of there in time.
All right, that's going to wrap it up. Thank you to everyone for joining us live. We're back Sunday night, right after WrestleMania Night 2.